Well, this year we saw the challenges of a pandemic and we heard the cry for social justice. And recently we reported the experience of an interracial couple trying to refinance their home who got what they considered an extremely low appraisal. When they changed their interior decorations from Afrocentric to European, their appraisal jumped by 40%. So it made us ask, what is the relationship between race and real estate?
There is a wealth gap between blacks and whites tied to home ownership, and there's a history of home ownership made difficult through a practice known as redlining, in which banks refuse to make loans to black people in certain neighborhoods.
Where you live today determines the quality of your kids' schools, your family's health, even your relationship with police. Redlining is now illegal, but as On Your Side's Ken Amaro reports, its legacy continues to shape life in some communities to this day.
And houses all down here.
To understand the legacy of redlining,
Still doesn't have it.
you have to see it.
We moved in 1959.
See it from up high.
We were the first black family on Stockton Street.
See it from street level.
You were living on the other side of the track.
That's right.
You have to see it through the eyes of those who experienced it.
Tale of two cities in Jacksonville. We had a large apartment complex on this vacant property up here.
Warren Jones, husband, father, grandfather, former city councilman, and now school board
We
member,
had houses here.
has seen it from every angle.
We now know why we were limited to where we could live.
Redlining maps were created in 1933 by a federal home loan agency, marking in redding areas where the government would not lend money. Those maps labeled black neighborhoods as hazardous. They created zones where home ownership and the generational wealth that's created by owning property was all but impossible.
A lot of people recognize that they could not get housing and loans like majority citizens could, but they didn't understand what was causing it.
Redlining was banned with the 1968 Fair Housing Act. However, its legacy or consequences were left behind.
You have neighborhoods that are still struggling.
When Jones and his family moved from a rental in La Villa to Stockton Street, 2 blocks from Mixon Town, they moved behind the invisible fence of racial segregation.
And I had to come to Forest Park because the school system was segregated.
It was a neighborhood school in a red-lined community built near environmental hazards.
Forest Park was built in the same block as the incinerator that burnt all the garbage in Jacksonville, and the same block that they had the dog pound where they killed the dogs.
Jones says also in the same block, a slaughterhouse.
Where they slaughtered hogs and pigs and cows, and only a few blocks from the place where they slaughtered the chicken.
Jones says the children played in 2 open areas near McCoy's Creek. At the time, a cesspool of human and animal waste.
That creek at the time was the sewer line for the west side of town. The church now owns that property.
We went back 60 years to the neighborhood where Jones grew up to see the legacy of redlining.
You walk down this street, any street in this neighborhood, there's no infrastructure, there's no curb and gutters, there are very few sidewalks.
A number of homes have since been demolished. Many of the environmental hazards are now gone, and while those who were able to move have moved, the community remains plagued by poverty, crime, and illness.
Home ownership is the key to growing wealth, and unfortunately many people in this community did not have that advantage.
Studies have shown almost all redline neighborhoods are worse off today. In some, the life expectancy is nearly 20 years less than residents of affluent neighborhoods. What will it take to erase the vestiges of redlining in predominantly black neighborhoods?
But there are many neighborhoods that have been left behind.
Having seen it from every perspective, Jones says first, there has to be a commitment to these communities along with an investment.
And we need to redouble our efforts to make sure that we invest in those old neighborhoods to make sure that people can be uplifted and feel proud of those neighborhoods and be willing to invest in those neighborhoods going forward.
Ken Amaro, it's not an easy topic, but we appreciate your work on that. And we want you to know that our On Your Side team has spent weeks digging into the legacy of race in real estate. Tonight at 11, we look at how the earliest city zoning maps chose to put polluting industries into black neighborhoods. And tomorrow at 6, we explore both the financial and also the psychological toll of racial bias in real estate.